We're going to start out with what seems like everybody's favorite reason to believe in ghosts, some sort of spooky encounter they've had with what they believe to be otherworldly spirits. According to Pew Research, as of 2009, quote, almost 1 in 5 Americans say they have seen or been in the presence of ghosts, end quote. And this is not a surprising statistic when you consider how many people have a story that they're eager to tell when the topic comes up. Now, I obviously can't say for certain that all of these stories are inaccurate for one reason or another, because I wasn't there, so what do I know? But what I can do is present a number of alternative explanations and reasons that we should doubt that these accounts are convincing evidence. One such reason is that people can simply lie. There's no law of the universe that forces everybody to tell accurate stories. Maybe they're lying because they think it's funny, maybe they're a sociopath who gets off on deceiving people, or maybe they're doing it for attention or financial gain. Another possibility is that people have unintentionally exaggerated the details of the story. There's actually been research done which shows that the longer the period of time since an unusual event occurred, the more exaggerated and inaccurate will be our recounting of this event. The particular research that I'm referencing examined accounts of the Indian rope trick. As Wiseman and Lamont write in their 1996 Nature publication, quote, "We hypothesize that if eyewitnesses were exaggerating their accounts of the Indian rope trick over time, one might expect a positive correlation between the impressiveness of the account and the length of time between performance and report." End quote. And here we see a scatterplot which confirms their hypothesis, plainly showing that the longer the period of time since they witnessed the trick, the more extraordinary and impressive their account of it. As Wiseman and Lamont conclude, quote, "This analysis strongly suggests that witnesses' testimony had become significantly more elaborate over time," end quote. I would imagine that the same trend could take place with ghost stories, and it's no surprise considering the fallibility of human memory, although it is interesting that the fidelity of the story consistently degenerates in the direction of making it seem more impressive. We could speculate about why this would be the case, but it's important to note that nothing about this seems to indicate deliberate deception by the people telling the story. Instead, it seems that this is just the way that our memories get distorted over time, through no fault of our own. So if I tell a person that I doubt their ghost story is completely accurate, and they say, "Oh, you calling me a liar?" the answer doesn't necessarily have to be a yes. Your memory of the event could simply have become exaggerated over time. Not only that, but even if the events as they describe them took place exactly as they claim, the person could simply be mistaken about what explains the events. What one person interprets as a ghostly encounter might be viewed by another as perfectly explicable, without invoking the supernatural. To see this principle in action, let's take a look at a ghost story that somebody once presented me with. When she was much younger, her and her friend had snuck out of their parents' homes at night in order to just sort of roam around, in aimless, youthful rebellion. As they were crossing this bridge, they saw a man who was sitting near the edge while fishing. When they looked back after crossing the bridge, he was nowhere to be seen. Therefore, he was a ghost, she concluded. When I first heard this story, I was so dumbfounded by her gullibility that I was the one who looked like I'd seen a ghost. What kind of a conclusion is this for such a mundane event? There was a guy sitting somewhere, and when I looked back, he wasn't there anymore. Maybe he got up and moved. Or maybe he fell into the river and drowned, ironically only then returning to haunt us as a ghost. Or maybe he wasn't a ghost, but instead he was just a regular man who, in a quixotic twist, was quickly abducted by aliens when your back was turned. Nothing about this account screams out to me he was a ghost, and leaping to this conclusion on such flimsy evidence strikes me as embarrassingly irrational. If we can explain something without resorting to the supernatural or paranormal, why invoke these things? Looks like one of my t-shirts is missing. Maybe I misplaced it. Or maybe Satan stole it when I was sleeping. And even if we can't explain something, why not just say that? Why say, "I can't explain what happened, therefore ghosts"? This does not strike me as a logical conclusion. And when you say, "I can't explain what happened, therefore ghosts," aren't you really saying, "I can't explain what happened, therefore I can explain what happened"? What kind of irrational thinking is this? Another explanation for how people could be genuinely mistaken in thinking that they vividly saw a ghost is hallucinations. This is one explanation that people sometimes laugh off, but it's worth remembering that about 1% of the population is schizophrenic, with one of the symptoms being either auditory or visual hallucinations. And even if you're of sound mind, you can hallucinate for other reasons. As Carl Sagan points out in The Demon-Haunted World, these can include sleep deprivation, alcohol withdrawal, drug usage, sleep paralysis, emotional stress, or sensory deprivation. Considering all of these potential causes, it's a wonder we don't all hallucinate much more often. I distinctly remember, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, waking up in the middle of the night and vividly seeing several blue, ghostly, decapitated heads hovering at the foot of my bed and circling around one another. Was this an encounter with the paranormal? Did a gaggle of ghosts decide to pay me a visit on that one particular occasion for just a few seconds? Or was my brain simply misfiring and continuing to briefly produce some of the visual images that it does while we sleep and dream? I know what my conclusion is, and even at that young age, I was never tempted to think that those were ghosts that I saw. I was just like, that was fucking weird, and I went back to bed. I think it's a telling observation that alleged ghost encounters almost always happen at night. I can't remember who it was that made this observation, but I think it might have been a comedian or somebody giving a lecture on the subject, who pointed out that you never hear a ghost story where a person's like, well, I was at the park in the middle of the afternoon, it was a beautiful day, I was eating some ice cream and there were people all around, and then suddenly, bam, a ghost appeared right in front of me and said boo. No, it's almost always a person who's at home or in some spooky location in the dark when it's quiet. I don't think this is a big surprise, because we're more prone to being in a fearful state at nighttime. And considering all of the dangerous predators that are out there in the world, especially on the African savanna that our ancestors evolved on, it makes sense to be more on your guard and alert at night, in a state where you consider that the sound you just heard, the movement you just saw, just might have been caused by something that could do you harm. Since we don't really have to worry about being mauled to death by lions in our second-floor bedrooms, could it be that some of us apply this same mindset to other perceived foes like ghosts rather than vicious predators? Considering their prevalence in popular culture, considering that many of us watch terrifying movies about people being tormented by these ghosts in the dark, I think this is very likely. It's also very telling that ghost stories are usually told by exactly the kind of people who are already inclined to believe that sort of thing. Some people are just wired differently. Some people are more inclined to rashly conclude that they've encountered a ghost, and nowhere does this become more clear than when reading or listening to some first-hand ghost stories. I'm on Patreon. There's a link in the description if you'd like to support my content. I would really appreciate it. There's also social media links in there if you want to follow me there. I'm trying to build up some of those followings. I would really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe for more videos if you haven't already. Hit the bell, hit the like button, post a fucking comments. All that fun stuff that's standard on YouTube. You know the fucking drill. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this.